Truth. Welcome back to season 2 of our Sunday riff-offs. Rochelle and I are so excited to welcome you back to this space where it is expectation-free and you get to come exactly as you are, which is our promise to you too. We just come exactly as we are, and it's just an open invitation just for you to journey with us into the heart of transformational truth. And the way that this podcast works, the way that this space works, is that we are going to have a wheel that we spin that is filled with topics that really are on our hearts, that have resonated with us, topics that represent work that we've done or work that we're in the midst of. And so when you get to see the wheel here in just a second, we will spin it and it'll land on the topic. And then you are going to get our very real, very raw reactions to whatever the topic is for this week. As you're looking at it, if it's ever on your heart that you're like, gosh, I really wish that they would talk about this or talk about that, or I wonder if they would be willing to explore this, don't ever hesitate to drop us comments, to reach out. We have a Transformational Truth Facebook group that is filled with these wonderful, beautiful, empowered women. And you are always welcome to come and join us in that space, because that's where we also take these topics and really dig in at a deeper level. And so you are more than welcome to come to that space, bring some friends. Like I said, lots of empowered things that are happening in that space with a lot of really beautiful women. So, Michelle, anything you want to say before we're getting started here?
I am just so excited. It's been a few months since we've spun the wheel, and reflecting back on all of the topics that are on there, it's interesting that I had an emotional response to a few of them. So it'll be interesting to see where we land and why we land on it. And we really just feel like every time we do this, that it's meant to be that space. And we usually do these about every 2 to 3 weeks. And we have other activities in our Facebook group, other offerings and what have you that are aligned, and also just create that connection space. So I'm just really excited because I love how random this wheel is. I'm a little nervous too, because we haven't done this in a couple of months, and I'm just curious to see where we land. So I'm ready to spin the wheel.
All right, let's do it. So here we go. This is our magical wheel here, our Transformational Truth riff-off wheel. And our topic this week is, oh, how interesting. The legacy of my truth. And I think that when you're looking at that topic in particular, it's really interesting to me. I know that Rochelle and I have both done just a ton of inner work this summer, just in a lot of different ways. But the very first thing that is coming to my mind, Rochelle, and I want your raw reactions too, but last summer, actually, we just about a month ago celebrated our 1-year anniversary of Transformational Truth. And when I think about the legacy of my truth and the legacy of this journey that I've been on, that is nowhere close to over, but the legacy of that journey, I feel like this Transformational Truth space, I'm just floored that this is going to be our first topic, because I think we're looking at a year's worth of a legacy already of evidence that has come from this inner work that you and I have done over the course of a whole lot of years, and that we have no intention of stopping. And so that legacy is going to get a chance to continue. But Transformational Truth is this in so many ways for us.
I think I love that perspective. I think it's absolutely telling that that was exactly where we needed to land to kick off season 2. I believe that all of what we do and all that we give and all that we offer is a part of allowing people, giving them permission to step into the legacy of their truth. And, a lot of times it takes other people, in particular for us, other women, to do it first. And that's really what I feel like kind of hit my heart, is that we're going first and kind of paving the way for other women to feel comfortable to discover what it looks like for them. And I think that this topic also aligns with so much of what I stepped into just over the last 7 months of starting my own publishing company with my husband, to give a space that is unlike any other, to give people the opportunity to share in multiple ways the legacy of their truth through their stories. And
Mm-hmm.
so for the last almost year now, I have just been diving into storytelling. And one of the first components that I talk about is needing to be honest with yourself. And I have a podcast actually that will add to this, another podcast that I just did with someone else that
Yep.
will really touch on a lot of this legacy of our truth, because we have to tell ourselves first before we can tell anybody else anything,
Mm.
to varying any degree, because we cannot show up in our full capacity to love and support and give to others if we don't fill our cups first, in
Mm.
terms of stepping, a lot of times our truth, our um is a story that we've been telling ourselves for so long, but it's not always the truth, if that makes sense. And
Very much
that
so.
is something that, I've worked with other people, but I had to work on myself first with that. And a lot of times that's not necessarily like that you've been lying to yourself, but that like your experiences, your environment, all of these components developed a truth that may not be the truth. And I think that that's really where transformational truth was born, was
It
that
is,
legacy of our truth. And so, ooh, the
right?
wheel, the wheel is never like not telling us what direction it's supposed to go into. It's so weird. I love it.
Yeah, it totally is. And I think one of the things that has been, I don't know, something that I've discovered in the last, I don't know, handful of years specifically, but whether we acknowledge it or not, there is a legacy of our truth, right? And so even if our truth right now is a little bit muddied, or if we haven't taken time to like really dig into it, there is still a product of that truth, right, that's showing up in our lives, right? And some of the space that you and I really try and bring to people here is because we know what it's like when somebody makes space for us to do that digging,
Right.
because that digging takes a lot of courage, right? To like look at it and to really decide like what is it that my legacy right now is showing me? How is my truth showing up in my life? What are ways that maybe I'm not allowing it to show up in my life, where I'm denying how it's showing up in my life? But having a space where you can just be you, and there's not an expectation of what that looks like, and allowing that to be this place where you start and are really trying to take a look at, okay, what is this legacy that I'm leaving? And I think that so many times, and you and I talk about this all the time, Rochelle and I are so passionate about words and about what words mean. And I think the word legacy, a lot of us in our minds, go to like, what are we going to leave when we're gone? you
Hmm.
know what are we going to, and a lot of times it can even be like physical things or monetary things or whatever. I think when we're really talking about this, it's like, what is the evidence in my life of
Yeah.
how my truth is showing up, and how can I acknowledge how that's impacting me and impacting my relationships and impacting these other things that I do? Because I think she and I would both tell you that to this day, we are still discovering things that
Yes.
are that are like, wow, that there was a pattern there, or there's something deeper that's here that I'm only just now realizing has been a part of like writing my story, or has been a part of influencing my life in these different ways. And so when we're talking about the legacy of your truth, it's not just how, like what it's going to leave your family, or what it's going to leave, in different arenas. So much of it starts with how it is just showing up for you, and then recognizing how that is changing how you show up for yourself and how you show up in the world. I don't know.
Exactly. And I love that we did so much of this over the summer. We
Uh
had a chance to be together for 11 days this summer.
huh.
And I'll quickly share something that happened with inside of me, also like loving people through their
Mm,
legacy. When you told me that you've never seen anybody do as much as I do, I thought that that was normal.
mm,
I thought it, and it wasn't a judgmental space or anything like that. It was just like an observation because you had never been in my home before.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that as like an opportunity and a challenge to dive deep. You know, after you left, I sat down with my calendar. I sat down with myself. I sat down with my husband. I sat down with my kids.
Mm.
I'm a homeschooling mom of four. I run multiple businesses, all these kind of things. But even outside of the doing, I was always doing, like, even on an emotional level, I was
Mm.
realizing. And for a while, I've been wondering why I'm just so not tired, like, oh, I need to go take a nap, but like, I don't know how else to explain it right now.
Yeah.
And that was like a legacy of my truth of what areas of my life can I recharge?
Mm.
That was kind of the challenge I gave myself. And for me, I'm taking certain steps to do that. And I love that I was in a space with someone who, first of all, felt comfortable to tell me that I was in a space with my own healing, that I could take that as an opportunity and not take it as a threat. I think a
Mm.
lot of times we give people that we love feedback, but sometimes it's not received because a lot of the work hasn't been done to
Mm-hmm.
be in that space to receive. And I've noticed that in myself. 10 years ago, I would have felt like the crappiest person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not doing this mothering thing right, or I'm not doing this business thing right, or whatever. But I was just so in that space of receiving. And I think that that's so important to bring up, that we're going to have people in our lives that are safe.
Mm.
Somebody giving us feedback like that doesn't make them unsafe. It's actually the
Mm-hmm.
total opposite. But a lot of times we are in such a state of approval of other people, or people pleasing, or we're in like a dynamic where we feel like everything needs to be productive, or everything
Mm.
needs to be performance based. And that, like, if we're getting those loving gifts, because that's really what it was for me, of an observation without any criticism or anything,
Mm-hmm.
that I was able to do that because I didn't feel like I needed to perform any other way.
Mm-hmm.
It was just me being me. And sometimes when somebody gives us those gifts, they're just this wonderful opportunity to step into that legacy of truth.
Yeah,
So
I agree. Well, and it's kind of making me think too. I don't know. In so many ways, we end up spinning this wheel, and it just lands so perfectly, for things that are in alignment. And so, one of the things that we actually talked about in season one, which was all last spring for us, is how much our topics built. And if you haven't had a chance to check out those podcast episodes, then I would highly recommend it, because a lot of the work that is a little bit foundational to understanding your personal truth, so that then you can understand the legacy that it's leaving, can be done by looking back at some of those. Like, we talked about what it looked like to set boundaries, and we talked about what it looked like to raise awareness. We talked about making space for silence. And I think understanding your truth, a lot of that comes in silence, and in creating actual separate spaces for us to be able to think, even if that's just for a few moments. We talked about patience and persistence in the process last year. And I think it was interesting to me, Rochelle, to hear you talk about like what maybe some of those truths would have been, right, for you 10 years ago, right?
mhm.
That it was like that was a component of how you saw yourself. And I would say that I had plenty of those as well, and still do have some that I'm, working through and that I'm learning about, where it's like, well, do I have to carry everything? Well, that's a piece of my truth that I've, realized that, like, there's so many things that are not mine to carry, and all these different things. But if you are not making space for that, or if you're not giving yourself grace as you are showing up in this space and being persistent in it, and we even did one about like, how big is your brave? And so
Yes.
all of these different topics that we experienced in season one here, I feel like are really leading to where this is starting for season two for us, because I think so many people both underestimate the amount of courage that it takes to like take a really honest look at ourselves, and to dig into the truth that is showing up in so many areas of our lives. And also, they underestimate the power of what can be done when you're doing that kind of work in community, because it's so much less scary and it's so much less, it feels less, I don't know, overwhelming, maybe is
Yes.
the right word. Because when I know that I'm in this community of other people who are digging in and doing this work, that there is no expectation of how I'm showing up or performing or whatever that looks like, then I can really take a look at my legacy. And then on the backside of that, understand that I have the power to like change whatever those stories are for me right now. If they're not serving me or not serving my relationships or the spaces that I occupy, I have a chance to make a choice, right? Whatever legacy we're living right now doesn't have to be the legacy that we're living in 10 years. Or it can, if the legacy that we're living right now is amazing, it doesn't mean that it can't be even better in a handful of years. And so I just think a lot of times owning the courage that goes with that, but also being willing to step into a space like this that we've created and in our Transformational Truth group, I think there's just so much power there for people. This is a really cool topic. I'm really excited to see all the things that we're going to put together for it.
I'm so excited. It's just the title in itself. Without forcing it or tons of time or anything like that. And I want people to understand that, like, it doesn't need to be a forced process. It doesn't need to be like, oh my gosh, I have to spend all these hours working on myself.
No.
I am forever changed stepping into a lot of the truth just over the last 13 months. Just by creating this group and just dabbling. That's, dabbling into and not focusing on, oh, I need to change myself. I think that's such a negative thing that happens a lot. No, like something's wrong with me. I need to change myself. Just open to receiving a better journey with yourself. That's really what it comes down to. Just a better journey. It doesn't, there won't be perfection. There won't be anything like that. And I think one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is time with ourselves and how necessary that is. So.
Yeah. And then a space to know that you're not alone.
Exactly. Well, I am so excited about this. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is always like an invitation without expectation space. And just please hop into the Facebook group if you're interested. There's so much more in that group. And we just create, like I just said, invitation without expectation in everything that we offer. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And we would love for you to drop some comments on this. Let us know what resonated with you. One of the things that'll always come when we're finished with this is we'll have some reflection questions. We actually put those in a little phone screen. So that's something that we share out in our group. So we'd love for you to be in there for that. Dig into some of those questions. That way you can kind of keep this topic top of mind or in your awareness over these next couple of weeks. And then I'm sure that there will be some interesting, byproducts of that in the conversations that happen in the group. We would also love for you to share this episode, invite some other people in. Again, if you know that there are other people in your life, specifically women who are willing to dig in and do some of this extra stuff. Again, not that it needs to take hours and hours, but they're willing to kind of take a look at things and I don't know, just could be on this journey with you. We would love for you to invite them along as well. So make sure to follow us, drop some comments, and we will see you in a couple of weeks at our next Transformational Truth Sunday Riff Off. Bye, guys.